Well, spring is always a time for home improvement type projects, and you might be thinking about putting down some sod in your yard. And with me today is Keith Reed, our station superintendent, and he's going to give us some tips on how to properly lay sod. Well, hi Keith, how are you doing?
Hi Brenda, I'm great. How are you today?
Great. Well, thanks for being with us today. And first off, what do we need to think about very first if we're going to lay sod in our yard?
Okay. Starting out, the very first thing we need to do is get rid of all the existing vegetation, if it's an old lawn or weeds, whatever it might be. As you can see, this area is completely weed-free, and this was tilled quite a while back, but if you need to come in and till the yard, you can certainly do that. If you have an area that is basically bare, you might just come in and get rid of the few weeds you might have with Roundup herbicide a week or two before you're ready to lay your sod.
Okay. Well, after you've applied that herbicide, how long should you wait before you want to put sod down? You
need to wait a minimum of 7 days before you put before you sod. And I might also mention that talking about herbicides, make sure that you have not made a pre-emergence herbicide application earlier in the season for grassy weed control, because that will inhibit rooting of the grass once you put it down.
Okay, it won't root down through that pre-emergent layer. Exactly,
it just forms a barrier, and that barrier will prevent the new sod from rooting. So.
Okay, well, if I'm patching a place in my lawn and I'm really pressed for time, is there a reason, could I do it without getting rid of the underlying vegetation?
No, you really need to go to the trouble to start with fresh soil. For one reason, you get a lot better sod to soil contact. Your water's going to move through the plant better, and also if you have a lot of vegetation, I've seen if you have some real aggressive weeds or grass under sod, it will try to tend to grow and push the new sod up a little bit and cause it to dry out, and it can also become anaerobic under there, and then your roots will not peg down.
Okay. Well, we've gotten rid of all of our weeds, and now what do we need to do to the soil to get it ready?
Okay. We just need to make sure that we have a good firm seed bed, much like we were going to seed this area. And I want to emphasize firm. If you come in and till it, it looks great and it's nice and fluffy, but after you put your sod on it and start watering it, it gets real spongy. So make sure that your soil is about like this right here. It looks nice and loose on top, but when you step on it, my foot, as you can see, doesn't sink in at all, so it is good and firm. So this area is as far as texture is ready for sod right here. Okay, well, now we've got our soil ready, and is there anything else that we need to do to this? There's a couple of things. We'll assume that we've already had our soil test and done our soil testing, and that will indicate if we need to make any modification to the soil. For example, the test comes back and it says that we need to add lime. This is an excellent time to add the lime. That way we can go ahead and incorporate it into the soil, and it's not just right there on a thin layer.
Okay.
One other thing to mention is this is a good time for people to level their lawns. One thing to avoid is coming in with a much different soil type to fill the holes than what I have right here. This soil has quite a bit of clay in it. I would not want to come in and put 2 or 3 inches of pure sand on top of this. That would create layering problems and give me some problems with my water movement.
So you decided that we need some fertilizer on this, and you're going to actually put it on before we put the sod down, right?
Right. As my last step, right before I lay the sod, I'm going to go ahead with my fertilizer. Okay. And I'm just going with a 13-13-13, just a complete fertilizer. It's ready to go. Now,
we just need to water it?
We need to water it and put our sod down, and we're ready to go.
Now, do we want to wet this whole thing down, or how are we going to do this?
There's really a lot of benefit to pre-watering the soil before you lay your sod down. So I just like to work far enough in advance that the soil stays good and moist. Of course, you don't want it too wet because you do have to work in it. So just dampen it, and that should be good. And then we're ready to lay our sod. And once you begin, you can work quickly. It's very durable. You don't have to be concerned about tearing anything up. As I lay it here, there's a few things I need to look out for. One, my edges need to fit together firmly. And then I'll start my next piece right next to it. Once again, putting it close together. And the reason you need to put it close together is so it doesn't dry out. The edge of the sod will act just like a wick. If it lays up like that, or if the end sticks up, that's the sod that you will lose from dryness. So we need to make sure that it's down nice and tight.
And then do you just kind of step on it to press it down? Right.
As you're working, just, you know, it's fine to step on it, mash it down, whatever you need to do.
Now I notice you're not wanting to just line up your cracks right in line with each other.
It's a little easier if you stagger your cracks throughout this, because as your first couple of mowings, you'll find if your cracks don't all line up, it's a little smoother for your lawnmower, and it's going to have a little less tendency to dry out. So,
okay. Well, now on sod, if somebody's going to go pick this out off of a pallet, what should they look for? We've got a couple examples over here. Can we see what we should be looking for if we're going to lay sod?
Okay. Several things that are important on good sod. One is you have to have fresh sod. If a person orders a full semi-truckload of sod for a new lawn, that sod usually goes down on their lawn less than 24 hours after the time it's cut until it's completely down. So when you're buying in small quantities, sometimes you get into sod that's laid around on pallets for some time. This is what you would hope to find right here. Of course, this is early in the season, but you see the fresh green color in here. It's good and healthy. It's in a nice tight roll. The edges are cleanly cut. Once again, it's rolled up tight, so it's going to conserve its moisture. Right here is a piece of sod that has been laying around for about 7 days now, and as you can see, it's
really yellow.
It's about gone, and there's a possibility that sod might survive given the right conditions, but you're certainly going to lose the top growth. And it's going to be a long ways before this is healthy turf again. So
it's better to start out healthy and go from there instead of having to play catch up with something like this.
Absolutely. So, absolutely.
Okay, well, we've got our sod started laying over here, and you've got some examples of how it's been installed improperly over here. And can we take a look at those?
Okay, sure.
Well, Keith, this hasn't been laid properly, and what are some of the signs that we can see already?
Okay, I think if you look at both of these, you can see the color difference, but just as an example here, and I might mention this sod has been down 9 days, and it's had 4 inches of rain on it. If you'll look, it's very poor color, and just see a few roots starting to come through. By contrast, if you'll look over here,
this one's much nicer green.
This one has a lot better green color, and it's sticking to the soil a lot better. And as you start to pick it up, you have a lot more roots. I don't know how well that's showing up, but you have a lot more roots, and this sod is in good shape. And the only difference between these two pieces of grass is that one was not watered as it was being laid down, and this one was.
Well, that brings us to one of our final points. Okay. After we've got the sod laying down, what do you need to do?
Okay. As you're laying the sod, just as quickly as possible, as it goes down, you need to make sure that it's watered in very well. And then to finish that up, you need to roll it. If you have a small yard roller, that would work fine. If you don't, a riding lawnmower, possibly a golf cart, maybe even a four-wheeler would work for rolling it down. It's not a bad idea to roll it the following day as well, if you can.
And that just improves the contact with the soil, right?
Right. That just keeps that sod from drying out. If you can prevent the sod from ever drying out, you're going to be several days ahead in a mature stand of grass.
Okay. Now, how often, you said water it in right when you put it down, how often should you water it after that?
You need to water it until you can reach down and grab a handful of sod and not pick it up. You need to water it at least probably a couple of times a day if it's hot and sunny like it is today.
Now, is this a light sprinkling of water or a really deep soaking or somewhere in between?
At some point you need to give it a good deep soaking. Once that's done, you just need to keep it from drying out on top, because obviously as you can see, there's just a very thin layer of soil and plant material, so it's really critical to make frequent irrigations, and they can be light as you're starting out, and that's especially true for the first week to 10 days of establishment.
Okay. Well, Keith, you've given us some great tips on how to get sod successfully established in our lawns, and I really appreciate you talking to us today.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.